You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we explore everything going on in them thar crypto hills. Going to talk some Bitcoin, some ETH, a whole bunch of other altcoin. Maybe going to mix it up a little bit today. Looking forward to that. Of course, if you guys want to check out everything we have cooking here on the network, including joining us live for this show, everything else we do throughout the week, and exclusive content, pro Q&As, as well as options oddities for unusual activity, giveaways, a whole bunch more. theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more for the cool kids out there /secret club. And of course, a lot of the analytics we're going to talk about today brought to you courtesy of Genesis Volatility, gvol.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires out there. Apologize for not coming at you for a couple of weeks. Don't blame us. Blame the markets here. Of course, we were off for the Labor Day holiday here in the U.S. last week, so we're coming at you with 2 weeks worth of data. So let's get to it.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the price action, usually over the past week, now over the past 2 weeks, in the world's leading digital asset. Yep, we're talking about the big dog, Bitcoin, a little bit bigger this week than it was on our last show 2 weeks ago. Almost exactly 2,000 points to the north. It was 20,200 on our last show, and coming into today's show, 22,300. So a little bit of an upswing. Of course, there was some dabbling, a brief dalliance below 20,000 in that intervening period as well. We got as low, actually, as 18,623. That was back on September 7th, and of course, as high in the intervening period is about 22,399. So right now, it's pretty much near the apex of where it's been for the past couple of weeks. So does that bolster your hopes out there, all you crypto bulls? Hit us up. Let us know. Let's get out to the vol, the current Bitcoin vol. This is, of course, our friends over there at GVOL take a nice average approximation of the vol across the term structure and kind of encapsulate it in one nice, easily digestible number. Right now, we're looking at a 74, so a little bit more vol on the tape than there was on our last show 2 weeks ago. A little under 9 points. It was 65.18 on our last show. So that vol has crept up a bit. You know, that tends to happen whenever we break through that 20,000 strike or start threatening it. That's when we see the vol start to pop out there. In the past, all the vol, all the bid, all the skew was to the upside. These days lately, that's been lurking to the downside. Whenever we flirt below 20K, that vol gets juicy, and we're still reflecting that a little bit in the vol numbers right now. Bit vol, which is, of course, our friend Simon Ho's 30-day rolling Bitcoin VIX number, also reflecting a little bit more juice out there, 77.3. On today's show, 2 weeks ago, it was at a 73, so getting a little bit frothier out there as well. Simon just joined us recently on our volatility views, also on our Vol Views 500 show. He was a special guest there as well. So he creates other products, not just crypto, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. Let's get on out to the SKEW. And this is intriguing as well. On our last couple of shows, we were talking about maybe can this negative SKEW period finally come to an end? Can the calls lead the dance again? And then on our last show, we swung to the negative again. It was -4. And now coming into this show 2 weeks later, we are pretty much flat. We are even again, listeners. So no demonstrable premium to the calls or the puts. So if you look at all the options in that 30 to 20 delta strip on the call wing and on the put wing, it's flat. So that means right now, Bitcoin options are telling us, that we don't really have a strong bias one way or the other, at least in the near term. In the longer term, it tends to lean to the upside. But in the near term, we're hanging out pretty flat right now, and that is reflected in our SKEW. Simon's bit SKEW number has ticked up a little bit. It was 93.3 on our last show. Let's get out to the open interest. Let's see what's going on out there. And, of course, we are seeing calls leading the dance yet again in Bitcoin, over 2-to-1. Yet again, 152,000 contracts open. By the way, all this is on Deribit that we're talking about right now. We will change it up in a little bit with some other exchanges, but for the lion's share of the Bitcoin options, at least, it's going to be all Deribit all the time. 152,000 contracts on the tape right now, up 21,000 from this time 2 weeks ago. The puts, 77,000. So they are ticking up a little bit as well. The puts have kind of been languishing of late, but up about 7,000 over the past couple of weeks. So if you were hanging out below 20,000, I have to imagine that number would be higher. Looking at where you folks are lining up from a size position perspective right now, what are the top 5 size positions in Bitcoin options on Deribit? Let's find out. Let's start at the bottom. Number 5, 24,000 strike is the number 5 spot there. So a 9,900 contracts open. That's a newcomer to our top 5. It's just slotting in there at the bottom of the list. Number 4, we jump all the way up to the 45,000 strike. That has 10,500 contracts open on it. It's up about 800. Again, not a huge swings in the OI this week, except for number 1 here. Number 3, we have the 20,000 strike. So we're jumping all over the place from 24 up to 45, back to 20 now, with 11,000 contracts open. That's up about 500. So again, not a huge change. Number 2, back up to the 40,000 strike. So again, moving all over the place. 11,300 contracts open there, up about 900. And the big dog still, this one's kind of been ruling the roost for a while, is the 25,000 strike. That's 14,300 contracts open. It's up about 2,700 from this time 2 weeks ago. So interesting stuff. We haven't seen a huge shakeup, but we have seen a little more OI piling in at the top end of that list. In terms of action, over the last couple of weeks, the most active day we've seen out there on the Bitcoin options front was on September 9th, 38,400 contracts going up. That's about almost exactly as much as what we saw back on the last show, August 26th, 38,600. So a decently active period. Before that, we were talking about 15,000 contracts. So the light summer days are apparently behind us. Let's see what's going on out there on the CME front. Are they putting up some numbers on the Bitcoin options front? Well, let's find out. Not too much going up today, 22. But again, if you've been listening to the show for a while, watching those products for a while, that's not bad. Last week, we saw about 533 contracts going up. So the OI and the volume is starting to grow. If you're wondering what was the most active contract out there in CME this past week, it was the 29,500 calls going up a whopping 78 times. As for the micro options, we saw 2,000 trading last week. And so far today, a little bit more paper going up, about almost 1,000 on the tape as we're kicking off the show today. It looks like a little bit more active day out here in the micro Bitcoin options. You folks slinging the micros over there at CME, hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we break down everything going on outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now when we break down the top 10. Kind of hard to escape Bitcoin when we're talking about top 10 from a market cap perspective. This week, say goodbye to Doge. It is no longer in the top 10, listeners. It has been usurped by Polkadot at about 8.6 billion worth of market cap. So we still are well below the 10 billion threshold that we used to hang out at to break into the top 10. Number 9, it is Solana, 13.2 billion. Number 8, Cardano, 17.3 billion. Number 7, XRP, 17.6 billion. Number 6, it is Binance, 20 billion, pretty much exactly. Number 5, BNB, 47.2 billion. So again, we do jump up quite a bit between 6 and 5 yet again. Number 4, USD Coin, 51.5 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 67.7 billion. Numero 2, it is ETH, 210 billion. And rounding out the top 10 this week, it is Bitcoin. A little bit north of where it was this time 2 weeks ago, 426, almost 427 million contracts. Let's talk about ETH. I know it's a big one for a lot of you out there before we add in some newcomers to the list this week. ETH coming into showtime, 1722. That's a wee bit north, almost exactly 200 points north of where it was on our show 2 weeks ago. Our last show, it was at 1537, up a whopping about 185 handles from where it was this time 2 weeks ago. In terms of range, the low was pretty much on our show 2 weeks ago, 1537. And in terms of the high, it was 1953. So we flirted with the 2000 level. Didn't quite get there, 1953 to the upside. Let's get into the vol out there. On our last show, the vol was looking frothy, 94. It is frothier this week at about 104. SKEW-wise, a little bit of a different story. That was negative, almost -5 on our last show 2 weeks ago. This week, it was negative 1.7. So it was negative 4 3/4 2 weeks ago. This week, negative 1.7. So it has come in 3 points. So not quite as negative. Still not flat, but looking pretty close to what we're seeing out there in Bitcoin land. Open interest-wise, what's going on out there? We're seeing pretty much increases across the board, even if they are slight. It has been pretty much all calls all the time. That remains the case. Pretty much 4-to-1 calls over puts yet again this week. 3.5 million calls open right now. It's up about 50,000 this week. Puts 875,000. It's up about 29,000 from this time 2 weeks ago. In terms of the most active day over the past couple of weeks, once again, we're going back to September 9th. A little bit lighter on the ETH front, though, only 252,000 contracts. I say light because in our previous shows in the last couple of weeks before that, we saw days of 400,000+ contracts multiple times. So a little bit light on the 9th, even though that was the most active contract day we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Let's get out to the size positions in ETH options this week. Listeners, number 5, the 4,500 strike. That has 192,000 contracts open. It's up a whopping 2,000. Number 4, the 2,500 strike. So we're dropping back down again. That has 259,000 contracts open. That's up about 17,000 from this time 2 weeks ago now. Number 3, the 3,500 strike. So split in the middle there. 362,000 contracts open on the 3,500 strike, up about 3,000 from this time 2 weeks ago. Numero 2, we have the 4,000 strike. 405,000 contracts open there. It's up 3,000. And the number 1 strike we've been talking about for a while, the one where it seems like a lot of OI has been piling in for quite some time, the 3,000 strike. It remains the top of the heap again this week. 500,000, so pretty much 500,000 exactly contracts open on that strike. That's up 20,000. So folks continue to pile in. We were talking for a while about the D's 3,000s kind of catching someone's eye out there, and that remains the case again this week. 3,000s leading the dance. Let's get on out to CME and away from Deribit, see what's lighting it up out there on the CME Ether options front. If you're saying, wait a minute, what CME Ether options? You are correct, but that will be changing soon. In fact, it's changing as we speak. CME launched options on their big Ether futures today. So they are going live pretty much as we speak here, listeners. So intriguing stuff. If you want to learn more about all that, we will be joined by Tim McCourt, the guy who runs all things crypto over there at CME, on our Thursday This Week in Futures options program. So if you're listening to the full feed, if you're subscribed to all of our shows, listeners, our radio network feed, you will get access to that. Otherwise, go out there and subscribe to TWIFO, or just make your life easier. Go subscribe to the network feed. You'll get everything under the sun when it comes to options, including our conversation about the big Ether options coming to CME this week. In terms of the small stuff, the micro Ether options, a decently active week last week, 7,200 contracts on the tape last week. And today, so far, a little bit of a quiet day, 104 contracts only on the tape. Now, we said we might mix it up. This is the question we've been asking for a while. We asked it in the headline, the title of the show, a couple of weeks ago. Is it time to add Solana options to the mix? And you finally decided the answer for you folks, listeners, is yes. So let's get on out to the old Solana options. Solana coming into the start of the show. 37 and about a half. That's up from 31.60 just 2 weeks ago. I know it was flirting with the 30 handle not too long ago. So that's a nice little pop. That's up nearly 6 handles from where it was 2 weeks ago. Vol-wise, what is the vol in Solana? I've never broken it down on the show before. This is fun, listeners. It is a 102. So right around the same level we're seeing out there in ETH vol. SKEW-wise, also similar from a SKEW perspective, negative 1.8. That looks very similar, these numbers, to what we're seeing out there in ETH right now. Let's get out to the OI. How much paper is open in Solana options right now? The calls, nearly 400,000 contracts, 385,000, but also equally fascinating on the puts, 400,000. So it's pretty much close to 1-to-1 calls versus puts out there, which is unique amongst the major crypto derivatives products out there. Usually it is heavily call biased, and in the case of Solana, it's pretty flat. In terms of top 5 positions, let's break it down. Number 5, the sizable positions in Solana options right now, listeners, it is the 28 strike. Remember I said we're hanging out right now at about 37.5. The 28 strike, clearly deeply in the money strike. 43,000 contracts open there. Number 4, the 34,000 strike, 46,000 contracts open there. Number 3, the 30 strike. So number 4 was the 34 strike with 46,000 contracts open. Number 3, the 30 strike, 65,000 contracts open. Numero 2, the 20 strike, 90,000 contracts. And the number 1 size position, pretty much a straight at the money contract, the 38 strike, 98,500 contracts open out there, listeners. In terms of action, we don't have a lot to compare it to. It's the first time we've broken down Solana on the show. But the most active day we've seen over the last couple of weeks was September 6th, 145,000 contracts on the tape. So there we go, listeners, all of you who've asked us to include Solana in the rundown. There you go. You can rest easy here on the shows. And check out some of the other altcoin here, then get to some of your questions on this Just the Facts, ma'am edition of the Crypto Rundown. XRP, our old friend Ripple, 35.4 coming into today's show. 2 weeks ago, 32.8, so up about 2.6 cents over the course of the past couple of weeks. Good old Doge, I mentioned it fell out of the top 10. How far did it fall? Let's find out. Last show it was 6.3 cents. This week, it's down, a whopping almost 1.5 cents over the last couple of weeks. Litecoin, 61.20 today. 2 weeks ago, 55.17, so up pretty much exactly $6. Let's get out to Cardano too. Why not? Last show, 44.7 cents. This week, 50.4. So up about 5.7 cents. Polkadot, 7.18. Last show, 7.73. This show, it's up about half a buck. And the old Shiba, it was 0.000012 2 weeks ago. This week, a whopping 0.000013. So huge swing out there. Is it time for the Shiba Lambos? I'll let you folks decide that. Speaking of you folks, it's time to get some of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to your questions segment. You guys know how to get at us at Options on most of the major social media platforms. Questions at theoptionsinsider.com also works. Or, of course, if one of our pro members, just hit us up in the live chat. You get bumped to the top of the list. This week's question comes from Paul. Paul just says, do you ever look at options activity on exchanges other than Deribit? Is it even worth the time? Well, Paul, thanks for your question. If you listen to the show for a while, you know we do mostly focus on Deribit for an obvious reason. That is still the center of the crypto derivatives universe, especially if you're talking your Bitcoin and your ETH options. But that said, every week we do also talk about CME. In fact, we talked about them again this week. They are starting to grow with more volume, more products, adding another new product this week. So every week we do dabble in those. And this week, yet another new addition. We had them on the show a couple of weeks ago, which is really what set off this conversation about adding Solana to the mix. This is the data now coming from Zeta Markets. Those folks who joined us on the show a couple of weeks ago. They, of course, a big Solana options exchange. All that data coming at us courtesy of our friends over there at GVOL. So they get it, and we pass it along to you. So there you go. That's just 3 exchanges off the top of my head there, Paul. And others have flirted in there. Of course, you're talking about guests on the show. They have been legion. We've had Backed. We've had Gemini. We've had now what is FTX US derivatives. Before it used to be LedgerX, and just about every other crypto derivatives venue under the sun has been on this show one time or another over the past couple of years, Paul. Great question. We're always looking for more venues. If you have venues you think we should talk about on the show, hit us up. We love to hear from you guys. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for our Just the Facts, ma'am, edition of the Crypto Rundown this week. Did you enjoy having Solana in there? Do you have other crypto added in? Hit us up. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you folks out there. Remember, if you're intrigued by crypto, you want to hear about what's going on the CME front, especially with those new ETH options, as well as everything else going on in the complex, tune in to TWIFO this Thursday. We'll have a deep dive into that with Tim McCourt over there at CME. Coming up the rest of this week, of course, tomorrow we have an active day with the Pro Q&A, as well as, of course, with our friend Mead Monger and the folks from Also joining us over there to discuss all things a leg to stand on, a great charitable endeavor we're happy to highlight here on the network. Wednesday, of course, we have Options Playbook, Options Bootcamp, and a dose of the advisor's option for all you pro folks out there as well. Then back again on Thursday with TWIFO, of course, getting into some of that crypto we talked about earlier. Then back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CFI options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.